Nathen's take on the Holocaust and why we should never forget.
It was a very depressing time, and to be honest, it was very brutal, very messed up. Why we should never do anything like that again is, you really want more suffering in this world? There's enough as is. Trump's essentially the next Hitler. The only difference is he's not killing them off. Instead, he's getting others to do it, so he has no liability. That's exactly what he's been doing this entire time.
So we watched several documentaries on Auschwitz and the final solution. What do you think about that?
The way they were executed, gassing them, is messed up. That's one of the most cruel ways to die. Essentially, you're suffocating, your internal organs melt, and the entire time your entire body's in pain because it's essentially burning away your nerves slowly, so you feel every last second of it.
Yep.
And it's not even a fast way to die either.
What about the first-hand accounts of survivors who survived by being buried under the bodies of others?
I feel sorry for them. That must have been traumatizing. Having to survive by hiding underneath your loved ones who died already?
On a scientific level, do you think that the idea of using Zyklon B was a smart idea? Was it very efficient killing? Or do you think that it was just their way of getting more cruelty out of it?
More cruelty? It wasn't even efficient. That chemical, just to kill a small group of people, would take about an hour.
Well, you do remember that they were showing the bathhouses. They would cram anywhere from 10 to 20,000 people at a time.
Exactly my point. It's extending the suffering. Not only are you having to deal with all of that, you're also having to, if you're stuck in like the corner or something, you're screwed. Because once those gases come in, everyone's going to go into a panic.
Amount of time. Holocaust analysis, part 2. All right. So what about the Hitler's belief in human perfection and the fact that he didn't just target those of Jewish descent, but those who were disabled, mentally disabled, physically disabled?
Makes me want to punch him in the face. Maybe grab a minigun and unload the entire bloody thing on him.
And what do you think about the fact that as soon as Hitler found out that the truth behind his final solution had been discovered, he shot himself rather than face his maker?
It's more than just that. He shot himself because he was about to be caught. The guy was a bloody coward. He'd rather die than suck it up and deal with the consequences of his actions. It's a rather idiotic idea, in my opinion. He has the balls to try and commit genocide, yet not when it comes to taking responsibility for what he's done. Those are the marks of a coward, not a leader.
And Hitler's quoted statement where he stated that every war needs a scapegoat and the Jews will be mine. Do you think he truly hated the Jews, or do you think he just looked for someone he could blame for others' suffering?
Neither. In my opinion, he just wanted to watch the world burn.
Holocaust Analysis Part 3. Do you think that the world, if given the opportunity, would repeat those mistakes?
Oh, without a second thought. This world's cruel and unforgiving. I mean, hell, it's already happening down in the States with Trump.
And what about the Nuremberg Accords, where all the countries, the major countries of the world, signed an agreement never to allow that level of mass murder occur again? And the fact that it's been violated on 3 separate occasions in African countries and no one stepped up to do a damn thing.
People will think if it does not affect them, if they just ignore it, it'll go away and solve itself. That's a very stupid idea. The very thought of a problem that will solve itself is impossible. If that were possible, the problem would not exist in the first place. Now would it?
And in your personal opinion, what solutions are there in today's modern society that could solve the problem of mass genocides and hatred killings?
Well, that's the big problem. You can't. Humans think this person is different, therefore they are wrong in every way, we must kill them off. This has happened countless times through history. If I had a nickel for every time genocides happened because someone were different, well, I'd be the #1 richest person on the planet.
The genocides that have happened since, there was the genocide of the First Nations in Canada and the United States. There was the genocide in Rwanda of the Hutu people. And most recently, there's the genocide of Kim Jong-un in his country in North Korea. And yet the world still stands by and says,
we'll step in when it's needed. Yeah, when pigs fly.
Holocaust Analysis Part 4 continued. Going back to the time of the Holocaust, were you surprised to find out that Auschwitz was not intended to become a murder house when it was first established, but rather a Soviet Jewish prison house, and was only about 1/3 the original size that it became?
Well, I think it's quite logical, actually. The fact that happened, not the idea itself. Humans have a very messed up nature. They turn something innocent and helpful, maybe not so innocent in some cases, into something for complete and utter genocide. Look at gunpowder. Originally it was not supposed to be used in guns. It was originally used for fireworks in Japan.
China came up with the fireworks. Okay. Alrighty. Several parallels that we've noted between the genocide that happened during Auschwitz and the genocide that happened for the First Nations people was discovering that the reason Auschwitz was originally taken over by the SS had to do with the fact that it happened to be in perfect climate. The land could be harvested for coal and the water and everything that they needed to create their weapons. So they took over that much land, not because they wanted it, but because they could turn it into a giant slave factory.
Yeah, and they had the bright and intelligent idea of killing off their workers, because that's a way to increase productivity.
Auschwitz Part 5. If you recall, we were talking about how Auschwitz and the First Nations slaughter. Would it surprise you to find out that a lot of the First Nations land was not taken because they wanted the people off of it, but because they wanted the resources that were under the people?
Doesn't surprise me. Humans are greedy and all-consuming souls. They say they want a little, they want a lot. They say they want a lot, they'll take even more. That's just the way humans are.
Of the governments in the world, which do you think comes the closest to being a decent government? Excuse me.
Well, no exact comment on that one. I mean, considering what's going on in the world right now, no government seems logical or anything.
Yeah. All right, going back to Auschwitz. Were you surprised to find out that there were roving military outfits that would collect people at random from towns, take them out into the woods, have them dig their own graves, and then shoot them, men, women, and children? And this was happening before Zyklon B was used for the mass murders.
Doesn't really surprise me. Humans are messed up. They'll look for any excuse possible to kill, to slaughter, to steal, to lie, to cheat. Humans will find any excuse.
Auschwitz Part 6, I think. Summation. What is your final summation and ideas regarding Auschwitz, the Holocaust, and why we should not repeat the same mistakes?
Well, why we shouldn't repeat the same mistakes is actually kind of obvious. Do we really want to kill off more creatures, more people, well, just for the sake of killing? I mean, honestly, who thinks this is a good idea? Yet, look out in the world these days. Right? Out there's your example. And my opinion on the Holocaust, it was a messed up time. Depressing. Who in their right mind, well, shouldn't say right mind in this case, because it was freaking Hitler, thinks, oh hey, you see this? This right here is a good idea. Let's blame this entire group of people and make it seem like we're the victims. I mean, who thinks that's a good idea? Apparently Hitler did.
Watching the testimony of the soldiers who actually participated in the genocide and seeing that they still have no remorse for the actions they took against the Jews, and they have this lingering hatred that's been ingrained in them so much that they can't see past it. Do you think that perhaps the issue is that humans are more like sheep and will follow anything that they hear too much of?
sheep's the entertainment of the century. They're like bees, mindless drones who will follow the strongest leader possible, regardless of what consequences lie ahead. Sheep, if you remove a certain section from it, they'll just go off on their own. Bees, on the other hand, you remove the queen, and well, they become mindless and just repeat what they were already doing beforehand. So the analysis of sheep is very illogical. Humans are much more like bees.
All right.